Okie dokie, artichoke. Everybody, welcome to our podcast, Planet New Jersey, the official NJBIA podcast of the season. With me, as always, is Double Trouble. I've got Vinnie Civitillo and Randy Stephens. And our fabulous podcast is, of course, as always, sponsored by NJM Insurance. No frills, no mascots, just fantastic insurance. So look them up for all your insurance needs. But with us today is a very special guest. We're very excited. A very special guest, two ladies,
Yes.
is the New Jersey Association of Professional Mediators, APM. We have Suzanne English and Zoe Cassotis. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So as we always do on our show, we are just going to jump in with an icebreaker. So, Suzanne and Zoe, I don't know if you have this in your town, but it's in towns all over New Jersey. It's called Porch Fest. Are you familiar with Porch Fest? So Porch Fest is, and I was looking it up, and it's at least in about a dozen towns in New Jersey. It's not huge, but Porch Fest is if you have a porch, one day or one weekend of the year, a bunch of local bands come out and they play on the porch. People ride their bikes around, and there's a schedule of bands. And so it's kind of a community day for Porch Fest. We have a Porch Fest. I live in Asbury Park, and we have Porch Fest in the summer, and it's really fun. We have some of our larger streets will have food vendors, and it's almost like a little San Gennaro festival. And some are just a couple people that are outside. So am I introducing this to you for the first time?
Yeah, definitely for me. I've never heard of it before.
Well, it's very cool. Definitely check it out, but it's not much of an icebreaker if we can't all chit chat about it. So,
Randy, do you know Porch Fest?
Would you ask me, Vin?
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar. I was actually going to ask Casey if it was just a Jersey-based thing, but truth be told, I'll say, going back to maybe the spring, I've started seeing like bands or like and notable, performers like do it in different parts of the country for sure. So I think it's growing in its popularity because I've seen it. I didn't know it was Jersey-based though.
She said if you have a porch, and the first thing I thought of was like they don't even ask. They just show up. Start like jamming on your porch like, hey, I'm trying to nap here.
Oh, I kind of like that idea. Yeah, you just kind of show up at people's houses and start playing. But
we have a lot of like random block parties here in I'm gonna call it I live like right down the middle of Stockton and Sargentsville. I think the line like goes through my house. So I can't tell you which town. I want to say Sargentsville. We have a lot of that kind of stuff here. There's always bands playing. There's a big like grassy field out near my house. They always have like something going on. And it's a lot of fun, you know. We take the kid. They've always got like ice cream trucks and stuff, you know. Always a good time.
I think the push is to get people outdoors.
Yeah.
Right? I think the push is to like get people outdoors because Chantel, my wife was just telling me about Oktoberfest or something that's coming up down here. Now we live right near their schools and all the big soccer fields. And I know in the summer they just had a big thing where the bands were playing pretty much all day. So yeah, I think it's just like a push to get people out and get people moving around probably.
Yeah, in Mahwah at Ramapo College, TD Bank sponsors a summer concert series, and they have 4 concerts on consecutive Thursdays, I believe. And like Randy said, it's a way to get people out, and the bands are really good cover bands and very impressive array. So it's a lot of fun, and it's free.
Yeah,
that part right there, Zoe.
Except for parking, but that's okay.
Well, if I wasn't a parent, I'd probably never leave this room. So anything they can do to coax me out of my cave.
I give block parties. We've had for the last few years, we've had this would be our 4th year we've had a block party. And a lot of our neighbors talk about block parties they had when they were kids, but then haven't been to a block party since they were kids. So we all decided, well, let's have our own block party, and it's been great. Every year everybody just gets so into what they're making, the food they're making, and it's just a really nice day to, even though you see your neighbors all the time, you don't really get to kind of chit chat and hang out with them. So it's kind of a nice, definitely a nice community builder, and everybody looks forward to it every year. So I don't know if y'all are having any block parties, but I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Maybe my favorite food in the world is like a food truck cheesesteak. And it can be like I could go to the same restaurant that has the food truck. And it's just not the same. Like, I don't know what it is.
Just fun. It's fun eating out of a truck. That's why.
Yeah.
It's like the boardwalk on wheels, Case.
Exactly.
Oh, exactly.
Tell your South Jersey with the cheesesteak.
I'm northern, but I don't discriminate against my southern brethren. Like I'll take their southern Jersey culture and appropriate it all I want.
Pork roll versus Taylor ham, right?
Hey, she fit it right in.
That's a perfect segue. Yeah, and it's a heated debate. That is, depending on where you're from. Yeah, it is pork roll or Taylor ham. It's all delicious to me, so I'll take it either way.
Listen, we have mediators with us today. We can resolve this thing once and for all.
Exactly.
I have relatives who are buried with the man. I can't remember his name. The man who invented Taylor ham. So, or pork roll.
Somebody had to invent Taylor ham. Like, isn't it just ham that's fried?
No, it's a little bit more complicated.
It's more complicated than that.
Oh yeah, it's like the whole. I mean, Suzanne would know more than me, but I believe it's like the whole manufacturing process and delivery. And packaging.
I don't know that I want to know.
It's
as soon as you start complicating the process of meat, like I don't want to hear about what goes in.
You don't want to hear about what goes into it. That is.
I don't know. I think we should have a podcast on it. It is hard to replicate, though. I have a friend who's a chef in New Orleans, and they have they make a lot of things, pork related items, and they have had trouble replicating it. Just kind of going through it, and it's secret recipe. I think
it belongs to Joyzy. It belongs to Joyzy.
It's probably the water, like how nobody else in the country seems to be able to make pizza. So they start flying our water in all across the country. Like,
just that good. We're just that good.
We had a company once that won one of our New Good Neighbor awards, Fratelli Beretta, and they were talking about how they make like smoked hams and smoked meats. And they chose the city in New Jersey, I can't remember what city it was, to put their headquarters because they went around testing like the pH and all of that, like the contents of all the water across like everywhere. Wow. And like the contents of like that specific town's water were identical to like the one in Italy where they were from.
Wow.
And it's real. You need the right conditions to make the right food.
Food chemistry, San Francisco sourdough.
Yeah.
I'll have to give that a try.
Right. Exactly. I mean, don't we have one of the biggest aquifers in New Jersey? Just like deciliter and deciliters of water, fresh water, like till the cows come home. We have, it's impressive. It might be the largest aquifer in the country. I don't know. I did not look that up.
New Jersey is a great state, despite when people give you the what exit jokes.
But you know where they are. They tell you what exit. Like, oh, all right, I know where you are. You just south of 77, right? Piney start around 77.
To save my life, I couldn't tell you what exit of the Turnpike or Garden State Parkway I am. Like, I get in the car, I tell the GPS
can do the Turnpike.
I
can do the Turnpike. I can't do the Parkway though.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
I think like the Turnpike is so far from me that I don't know. The GPS never routes me over there, so I don't know.
That's right. Well, then he's a Western. Well, I got you. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, all right. So let's get down to business. Let's chit chat about the New Jersey Association of Professional Mediators. Suzanne,
there was such a perfect segue to that before
perfect segue. I was gonna go the pork roll route because I thought that was a good segue as well. But they're all good. Water leads to, I'm sure there's a lot of mediation with water and what happens in our state. So, Suzanne and Zoe, could you just tell us a little bit about it? For somebody who doesn't know anything about it.
Well, I will say I've never done a mediation on water rights yet. I think there may be something in the future.
Here's to that.
Well, a lot of mediation does occur between neighbors, but we are the New Jersey Association of Professional Mediators, also known as NJBIA, and we are a volunteer organization. It's member-based, and our members are from every city, every county in the state, and if we meet and when we meet, we tend to meet in the middle of the state. So, but we have two specialties. We have family and civil, and family deals with divorce, and maybe even prenups, estate issues between families, visitation rights and things like that. And it's a vehicle for people to use prior to going to court or sometimes after going to court, the same as with the civil. And they can be as complex as major corporations to disputes between neighbors. And I think most famous one that most people are aware of that kind of brought out mediation was a couple of years ago in the Fox Dominion case, and suddenly it settled right before they were going to do a jury selection, I think it was, and the mediator was able to settle it. So the power of mediation can be great. So,
that was a big settlement. Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of why people like mediation, one of the things that's really important about mediation is confidentiality. And we hype onto what happens in mediation stays in mediation. So that's also a reason for people to settle. They don't want all the details to come out. And when you settle in the court, it's public record. So that's another advantage to mediation.
Forgive my ignorance on this. Is everyone who does it lawyers too?
No, I'm not an attorney. I'm a non-attorney. Actually, uniquely enough, we have a lot of attorney members, but Zoe and myself are both non-attorney members of the NJPM. I'm currently the president, but you do not have to be an attorney. Usually most people do have a professional qualification. We have a lot of therapists, a lot of accountants, real estate people who have been doing a lot of negotiation, and you do not in New Jersey, you do not actually have to have any kind of licensing to be a mediator. You can hang a shingle out tomorrow and say you're a mediator, but we don't recommend that. We actually recommend that you do training, and the court. So usually, if you want to become a mediator through the court, you have to be trained.
What would you say the ideal candidate would be? Like, what are you looking for in a mediator?
I think it depends on. I think you have to have good people skills and patience, and I do think education can be important, and I do think you should also do the training. But we all are mediators. Every one of us, we do it all the time. We also do things for kids. A lot of kids are doing mediation in school. Alternative dispute resolution is huge everywhere. And we just have to stop and think about it. Like, when you're trying to settle a fight between two friends, you're acting as the mediator. And this is just a more formalized process.
And Suzanne, thank you for that, because I didn't realize that what I was doing between my 7-year-old son and my 5-year-old daughter every day was mediation. So
I was thinking the same thing.
I see a whole new career path opening up for us here.
I think raising 2 teenage daughters gave me the best mediation skills.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, raising daughters. So, Suzanne, let me ask you, just because I know so little about it, and again, I would say, just like Vinnie, excuse my ignorance, if I had a neighbor that was coming onto my property and, like, I don't know, cutting off tree limbs or something, would I reach out to someone like yourself, or would I reach out? Like, I would think if that's something like that were happen, I would call the cops and I would.
Are you kidding me? I would be thanking my neighbor. You want to go out there and do my landscaping for me?
You know what I mean? Like, somebody puts on your, like.
I get it. They build the fence like 5 feet onto your yard. Sure.
Yes, good fences make good neighbors, but when the fence is on the wrong side, and actually that's a lot of times. So there's 2 pathways. You could go privately, or you can file a claim through small claims court, and guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be mediating, because the court cannot, especially small claims and special civil, they can't possibly handle that. And also, to be honest with you, I think sometimes the cases lend themselves to be better to mediation because there's nuance in it. Mediation allows the gray, where in the court system, it's winner, we have an adversarial system and it's winner takes all. This doesn't, everybody wins, everybody feels a little pain in mediation. And what we're hoping for is that we get to a equitable solution for everybody, that everybody, because there's no, I always tell my kids all the time, nobody's 100% right and nobody's ever 100% wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And where you try to do is strive to hit the middle, or and maybe somebody is has more wrong not to use a more eloquent term than right, and you make the settlement. But maybe, and also one of the things that all cases have is emotions. A lot of it comes down to emotions. It's between the neighbor. It's not, oh, he cut my branch that was hanging over from my side of the fence. Oh my God, his teenage son has been keeping me up for the last 3 years,
Right.
blasting music. It builds up and it builds up, and then suddenly the neighbor's like, "Wait, you got mad at me for that?"
Right, it breaks.
So
so I get it.
He was practicing for Porch Fest.
Yes.
So there's two things I've heard from Susan, and Zoe, you can speak to this too if you can, possibly. But so the first thing is like mediation over litigation, right? You can say private versus necessarily going public. Gray areas, which you don't get in the court. To your point, it's either a winner or loser, for lack of better terms. But then the thing that really strikes me out and is that you guys are like, it's a not for profit, right? And when you think about anything legal, when you think about this type of that industry overhaul, like that's the last thing you think about, like that something being done in that space. How did that start, or how did you guys get involved in that regard, or look at it from that approach?
Zoe, do you want to take this, or do you want me to?
Yeah, okay. I can handle, like, do you mean, Randy, in terms of how the organization started, or why did Suzanne and, okay. So I believe the organization started about 35, almost 40 years ago. Is that correct,
Okay.
Suzanne? By
30, about 32 years ago. So yeah.
Yes, and it was a lawyer who also became a mediator, who is very passionate and still very active in the field. And he thought it was a good way to kind of add more of a credentialing type of system for mediation. Because like Suzanne said, anybody can put a shingle and say that they're a mediator. In NJAPM, we emphasize training to become a mediator. So the organization offers really high quality civil and divorce mediation, but you also need to keep your skills up. So there are continuing education seminars that are offered both within NJAPM and outside of NJAPM. So that helps keep us sharp with what are the current laws, different evolution and trends that affect mediation. Big one is AI. Another big one is the change in real estate laws with paying real estate brokers. And that is something that if someone is involved in a real estate deal, let's put an example, you have a divorcing couple. One of the biggest issues is who is going to keep the home and can they afford it? And if they have to sell the home, there are so many different variables that need to be considered. And now you have this situation of broker fees. So with NJAPM, it also fosters a very collegial environment. So as Suzanne mentioned, you have people from all sorts of backgrounds, academic and professional, and that it provides a very varied and lively exchange of ideas. They also encourage this camaraderie by the holding of 2 conferences that are held, one in May and one in November. And again, there are a lot of panel discussions, a wide variety of speakers, not just with legal background, but from all affiliated industries. So that's how it all started. And it's like about 200 members strong.
Wow.
And we're very active and very passionate about our field.
Wow.
Well, speaking of that passion, and forgive me for asking this, but why volunteer? Why? I mean, you said you have to go through training and keep up your credentials. Why not get paid for this work?
Well, we do get paid. We work
Okay.
privately as people, but we also do volunteer a lot of
Okay.
hours. no question
I
about
was
it.
going to say, if you're mediating a deal between Fox and Dominion, Fox is a
They're
multi-billion dollar
getting-
company. I'd want at least a little bit of that. You know?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They're getting paid a lot of money, and they're saving money because it's less expensive than the court system. It just is, because you can also get down to it. But but most of the volunteerism happens like on the special civil or the small claims. Your mediators there are doing it on a community basis, and they're doing it. Some of them are doing it to fill sort of required volunteer hours, but most of the time it's just being altruistic and keeping their skills up. And then we offer a low cost mediation program for divorcing couples, so that it's actually subsidized by our organization. When we do that as a training program for people coming in as apprentices, and they work with a fully qualified veteran mediator, and then the couples are able to have a reduced fee. I think it's like $195 an hour, which sounds a lot, but compared to what an attorney would be charging.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's about mediation is you don't actually walk away with it's not necessarily binding. Like arbitration is another form of alternative dispute resolution. And arbitration is much more like the court, where one person makes the decision and then you're held to that decision. Where mediators aren't making the decision for you, they're guiding you to the decision, and they're trying to help you ask probing questions. What's going on? Why is this? Bringing out the facts, looking at it, giving alternatives, and then having you come up to an agreement, and then writing an agreement together. And unless that agreement is memorialized in writing, it's not a legally binding agreement until it's put down in paper.
So then the mediation process sounds more flexible anyway, then.
It's very flexible.
Yes, you can come up with many more creative solutions, because to tag on to what Suzanne said, a judge is going to apply the law and may not really care about some of the subtleties of the relationship between the people. For example, if you have two businesses that are arguing, well, I provided a service and the second business said, but your service didn't meet our expectations. But they still, let's say these are two partners that really want to continue business together. Well, that's something that is a different twist to how the negotiations could proceed. So there are different, like I said, different variables that could influence what the outcome of the mediation is. So that there are many examples of flexibility, not just in civil, but also in divorce cases. One common example is parenting schedules and visitation. For every divorce, each family is going to have a schedule that is going to be tailored to their needs and what meets the needs of their children.
It sounds like you said that the nuance isn't lost in mediation, where it's maybe less stressful.
It's not lost. And one of my favorite things is, do you really want to invite the state of New Jersey into your family? I mean, that's basically what it is. And why would you have a judge make a decision about your family when you know better than anybody what's going to work for you and your kids? And you also know what is, deep down, what's fair or not fair. Maybe like, for example, maybe on paper, you inherited some money and it got commingled into your funds, but that with your husband, you said, hey, okay, that that inheritance, we're going to put it down as a down payment for our shore house, and they're going to use it. And then you get divorced, and they would, on paper, it should be that you should each get half, but you really know actually that was their inheritance money that you used. You can go in and write that down and say, yes, the shore house is going to be sold, and that person gets the profits or the percentage that they put into it. So it whereas a judge would just look at it and say, okay, well, you own this, you own this, you own this, and you're going to divide it evenly or however, and they're going to just, and that they're not going to put in what your personal details are and how it affects you.
Right. And do you find that is a lot of your cases are family cases, or?
I do both civil and divorce mediation, and some people, like we have people that specialize in instruction mediation, so it depends on what your specialty is. But both, but a lot of people do, particularly in the area of divorce, go through mediation because it fits it very well. It's you're going to decide for your family, and the mediator is going to guide you through what's legal, and they're not going to give you legal advice, but they're going to tell you what the statutes are and how you go about looking at that and applying it to your situation. And then we always recommend, we put together a piece of paper called an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding. And when we get that piece of paper, it's not signed or anything. It's just basically an outline of this is what you've agreed. And we tell everybody, each side, to go to their own respective attorneys and have an attorney review that. And so you think, why would I go to a mediator first and not just simply go to the attorney? Well, because what you're doing is you're presenting your attorney with what you want. And they may come back and say, well, no, actually, you might want to consider this or that and tweak it a little bit. But for the most part, they're going to say, all right, if this is where you're going and you've done this, that's great. And they then would turn that into a property settlement agreement that you would file with the court. So then you're able to proceed with your divorce. And that also would save you a lot of money because you're not having the attorneys go back and forth and try to make a settlement for you. You've already done it. You've done all the hard work.
And also
to add on to what Suzanne said is it saves a lot of time because you have to consider the schedule of, let's say, a divorce of both parents and the mediator. And a lot of times mediators are able to accommodate evening and weekends because most people work 9 to 5 or whatever it is. And they need to, let's say, between the hours of 6 and 8 p.m. Well, this is when I feed my family, pick them up, the kids from school or activities. And sometimes it's just the only available time is at 8 p.m. to have a mediation or over a weekend when it's just a bit calmer and less hectic.
Oh, so you do have that kind of flexibility of hours. I didn't realize that.
Yep. Yes.
I'm curious to know, like, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, because we're all mostly independent practitioners. So it's really up to each mediator to decide what schedule works best to conduct their business.
Interesting. So I know that so New Jersey Association of Professional Mediators, you guys are made up of non-lawyers and actual lawyers. Like how do lawyers as a whole or overall kind of view mediators? Like is that like a help to them? Is it like, taking something off of their plate? Like what's that relationship like between mediators?
Excellent question. We also have in our organization, we also have a lot of retired judges.
Okay.
Which are great, and as mediators too. And I think what we tend to do when I talked about that MOU that you're going to take to your attorney, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to refer you you don't have to choose, but will give you a list of people that are usually attorneys that are mediation friendly. And we have also a lot of attorneys that may take our training, but they're not going to necessarily work as mediators, but they themselves want to have a good understanding of mediation. Often, if it's a complex mediation in divorce and particularly in civil, you're going to have the attorneys in the room with you, and they're going to be there with their parties to help move the mediation. And most of the time, some of them will speak on behalf of their clients in civil. Some of them will allow their but I think it depends on the attorney to how they view it. But the attorneys in our organization are mediation friendly.
Wow.
And also to add to that, the court, as Suzanne mentioned early in the podcast, the court in New Jersey will assign a lot of cases to mediation because you'll be surprised, even for multi-million-dollar cases, they can go into mediation. There is a roster of approved mediators. You have to go through a training class and observe a number of cases before you can be added to the roster. And you need to keep your education up every year. And you can get assigned a case through that, and it can run the gamut from construction through discrimination, breach of contract, arguments over insurance claims, and so forth.
I feel like, I feel like there's a lot of the general public, a lot, I can speak for myself at least, but I feel like a lot of general public don't even know that this is an option versus just try to find a lawyer and, go
Totally
to
agree,
court. Like,
Randy. That's why I
yeah,
was like, I would not even I would not even thought about it before we met you and talked about it.
I think it's regional too. I think in California, they're especially in divorce, there's a little more. I'm going to my mediator. If you actually watch some of the Hollywood things, they're like talking about, oh, my mediator and that. So I think it's catching on. Other countries also use mediation as a primary tool first. In New Jersey, we are lucky. We do have the Uniform Mediation Act. I think it's 20 years now, and so it has guidelines for mediation, and it's great. We're really lucky to have that here, and I think that's what we are here trying to do today is promote mediation, because if you can even just sit in a room together and talk, and yes, we're not saying that the court system isn't important. Of course it's important, but it's not, an adversarial system is hard, especially when you apply it to a family. And so, yes, we still have to go through the court. Ultimately, if you're getting a divorce, it is going to be the court that's going to give you your decree of divorce. But it's how you get there. And what we're trying to tell people today is there are better ways to get to the end point. And I think a lot of times people are a little reluctant. I don't want to, I want to get what I'm entitled to. I don't want to give anything up. And that's why we always tell you, make sure you have a review attorney, review this in that. I had a case where the woman it was a very wealthy couple. They had a lot of money, and she settled for a lot less money than what she may on paper may have been legally allowed. But what her point is, look, this is more than enough. I'm keeping my house. I know my husband, and I know that he is gonna, those stock options and all those things he thinks are his, and I want what I want, and I have it, and at my time. And what for her is she wanted to move on in her life. She did not want to spend the next 5+ years of her life in a court situation. And I think it's also important to realize that I think it's in divorce, only like 2% of divorces end up in litigation. Wow. So it's the minority. So you're going to settle before that and have the pathway you get there. And so if you have more control over the situation, I don't know about you, but I maybe I'm just a controlling person, but I like my control.
It just sounds like such a more reasonable. Oh, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, in one point that Suzanne brings up is scheduling. Anyone who's worked with the court system, if you are going to file a case, you are subject to the judges and the court's calendar, not your own. So it might be 6 months, it might be 300 days from the time you file before you will get a court date, and chances are it's going to go to mediation anyway.
Wow.
So why not circumvent that a little bit and get a head start? There are a number of cases where the attorneys say to me, you know what, we don't want to drag this case out. It's really only $50,000, $60,000, or whatever is the scenario. And we don't want to spend a lot of time with discovery, which would be a charge passed on to their clients. So there are some attorneys who say, you know what, let's just work with a mediator. We'll get this resolved, hopefully within a few hours and maybe a little bit longer. And then everybody can proceed and move ahead with their lives.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds really, and then you had said, I think earlier in the podcast that it's confidential as well.
It's all confidential. And one of the things I think that is important to state here is the one area that mediation in divorce does not work is if there is a restraining order. Private mediators do not touch that. There are programs in the state to do mediation, and it's handled with people that are specially trained with domestic violence issues, so that safety comes first. And it's not that you can't mediate, but you would go through the court system in that particular thing, and then they have special trained mediators, and often they also have the ability to make sure that people are separated. So
That kind of leads to one of my one of the last questions I can think of is the fact of, are there ever any complex situations? And when you guys, obviously you know, reputable and done a lot of great things when you look on your website, but are there ever any complex situations where it's like, you know what, no, this has to go the litigation route? Like, have you ever come across any of those type of circumstances yet?
absolutely. Or what happens sometimes is they don't settle. So you can go into mediation and you go through it, the whole process, and back and forth, and then eventually they know they can't hit a compromise, and they then go to the court. But even then, I would still advocate that mediation as a first step is a great place, because it brings out some of the details, and oftentimes it actually allows for better settlement in the court system. So yes, there's definitely, and there are just some things that are, or there's sometimes where there's quite, there may not be the law hasn't been tested, and so you need to have a case in order to get, it's gray. We don't know what the answer is because we haven't got there, and there's no statute to point to and say, hey, this is what happens. So that would be, and I think Zoe mentioned that there's some changes in the real estate law and agreements and mediation, and there's some gray areas that are coming out of that. So it's going to be hard to mediate when we don't have a definitive answer as to what has happened prior.
Gotcha.
Where it's much easier if you're mediating and go, well, you do know that, people like, I want this and I want that. And it's like, well, if you go to court, nobody knows what a judge is going to do, but this is most likely the outcome. And then it gives them the idea of like, okay, this is what I can expect, and how they then apply that to their own situation.
Gotcha. Have you ever been really surprised in the level of pettiness of something that you've had to mediate?
Many times.
Can you give me an example?
Sure.
Confidential.
No names.
No. We're not allowed to disclose names.
Right.
As Suzanne said, it's confidential. A lot of times in municipal court, the cases that volunteers, I'm a volunteer in Bergen County, they tend to mediate a lot of noise complaints. So it's often in apartment buildings, the downstairs neighbor says the upstairs neighbor is making too much noise. And sometimes you can get to a civilized end result, and other times people just cannot resolve it. There was a case recently where it seemed on the surface that it was two men who just had a fight, but when digging into it, it ended up that really one person assaulted another person. Then it was not appropriate for municipal mediation because that's criminal.
Yeah.
So that is when it made sense to say this is not the appropriate forum. It has to be directed elsewhere.
Wow.
I think we talked a little earlier about the emotions. You said petty, and immediately that big emotion thing come up there. It's a lot of times it's people's emotions, and sometimes all they want to do is actually talk about it. They really want to say like, oh my gosh, you keep taking my garbage cans and like pushing them into the street, and they get hit, and and I'm really angry about that. And you're like, why is this case about this? Yeah. Or there's we all bring a lot of emotion, and that's also, like I said, with the divorce, it's people are divorcing, they've obviously hit an emotional impasse. And you got to move out away from like he did this and she did that, and start looking at what the facts are, but they also need to be able to kind of vent. So mediation is a great place to vent, but not vent for too long.
Right. And
we're
also,
not therapists.
Yeah, we're not therapists. And also that brings another point. We don't know the answers to everything. So there are times when it makes sense to engage a third-party expert. I have a case where needs to have a review of what are the assets, because if one person sells the home, well, what's going to be an appropriate amount for each party to get? Because it's not going to be equal in this situation. Well, this is where I was able to refer to a financial expert who could really evaluate the tax consequences of the house sale and the acquisition of certain properties. Again, I'm not an expert in that field, so let the expert work with the couple and present the facts, and then that can be brought to mediation. And then that is a really good jumping off point to fold into the memorandum of understanding.
Wow. It's interesting. I mean, I hear of mediation, like you said on the news, this was resolved in mediation, but I never thought about it and never thought about it on a level, that would work in everyday life. Like, I always think of it in larger,
like
scale.
baseballs, they're mediating their contract, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What does that mean? Like, it doesn't
Right.
sound like, okay, they've got brought in the mediators to negotiate the deal.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, and that's what we all think of it, but it actually applies to all of us. And most people are like kind of surprised when they come to court. I'm going to have my day in court, and they, it's small claims or special civil, and the judge goes, okay, well, first go see the mediator.
Right.
And an amazing amount. And funny enough, I was just talking to a judge in Union County, and she said, I can tell the people that are going to settle a mediation and the people that aren't, because the people that are sitting there and they're shaking their head, no, 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 they want to see the judge, even if the judge is not going to really do what they think that the judge is going to do. And the other thing that's really important too is our legal system has certain protocols that it has to follow. And, and one of the things that we're all really aware of is like, hearsay, and how you can't bring in hearsay in the court. But in mediation, you wouldn't necessarily bring in hearsay, but you can actually, like, hearsay might be something like an estimate for my car got hit. Well, what do you mean? This is hearsay. I have the piece of paper. It says that, it's going to cost me $300 to get the bang that my neighbor backed into my car and whatever. No, you actually have to have the mechanic testify. And when you're only looking for $300, can you really afford to bring the mechanic into court with you? No. So we can like look at that piece of paper and say, okay, well, we do have a piece of paper here and it is showing it. And you did actually admit to backing into your neighbor's car. And they're like, yeah, but my neighbor's car was parked illegally where it's not supposed to, but you're not supposed to back into it. So they might go, well, all right, you're right. I kind of was overhanging your driveway and I do it all the time. And so maybe you give me half for my fixing up, undenting my bumper. And that's how it settles.
Right.
And then
you also
find that the person's really angry because it's not the dent in the, it's the fact that they always park and it blocks their driveway. So
like you said before, it's not that so much. It's just that every night the lights are on and they're playing Led Zeppelin or whatever.
Yes.
The emotion. It's
humans have a lot of emotions, and we have to have a place to sort of, and you get to that boiling point, and and sometimes that boiling point seems like, why are they fighting about this? And you start drilling down and pulling it apart, and you see that there's emotional issues.
Wow.
Right. And there could be, like the example that Suzanne just gave with the damaged car. Well, one of the issues is, let's say if it was a person who takes their kids to school. Well, now they don't have a car for 4 days because it's going to be at the mechanic shop. One of the solutions that could be worked out in mediation is, all right, well, the neighbor who dented or damaged the car, maybe they can do the carpooling or take the kids to activities or go to whatever their needs are and accommodate that. And hopefully that would even lead to better neighbor relations. So, that's why mediation can be so creative and way more flexible, because you are taking into people's inconveniences and maybe finding a way to address that.
Well, that is excellent. I mean, it's like I said before, I just want to thank you for putting a light on it and making it relatable for every day. And so as we are kind of wrapping up our podcast, it's not too late to do our ding, ding, ding. It's our game show. So if you all are ready, we're going to dive right in. So what we need is, and we talked about this with our fabulous contestants, is our pieces of paper and a Sharpie or a marker. Will be 3 trivia questions about New Jersey, and the winner will get a $5 gift card to Wawa. It was not an official sponsor, but we do love them. And you get more than you think with the Wawa gift card. So is everybody ready?
Let's go.
All right, here we go. Question. Senator Bob Menendez's first elected office was to the Board of Education for what New Jersey City School District in 1974? So what New Jersey City School District was Bob Menendez first elected to the Board of Education? So what school district? And then when you're ready. All right, let's see. We've got Susan, Jersey City. Let's see, Randy, what do you have? Jersey City also, Jersey City. And Vinny, what do you have? I can't read that.
I wrote Patterson. I don't have any idea.
All right, so close. Union City was
Oh, we all lost.
That was a tough one.
That was a tough one. So then I have, that one. The College of New Jersey is the original name of what private research university in New Jersey? Very fancy. All right, anybody else? Got one from Suzanne. Let's see, Zoe. So what do you have? Edison? No, that was your other one. What do you have? What's your school up there?
I've just put their old name, Trent State.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I wrote that too, and I don't know the answer, but
Neither
yeah.
do I, then.
All right, well, ding, ding,
I don't know the
it's
answer.
Princeton.
Wow.
Yay, Suzanne.
Hold on. So say that again, Casey. What Princeton is the
Princeton was originally the College of New Jersey.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Back when Aaron Burr went there.
Yeah. Just a couple years ago.
Just a few years ago.
Just a few.
Do
we have one more?
We have one more. All right, so we have Suzanne's up. To honor the state's history of training them, what special kind of helpful working pup was declared New Jersey state dog in 2020? So it's a
Say that again?
It's a kind of service dog. What kind of service dog was honored as New Jersey state service dog? What kind of service dog?
It's time to win.
Yeah. All right. So, that's so funny. So we all interpreted different. It is a seeing eye dog, but half you had German Shepherd and the other half had seeing eye dog.
There we go. It's right. Both are right?
So of course I'm 0 for 3. Hold on. Are you giving German Shepherd credit?
German Shepherd is not official, but you both answered it, and I had a German Shepherd, so off the record, yes. But
I'll
a
take the
seeing
1 out
eye
of 3.
dog is what it is.
So who's the winner? Susan?
Suzanne, yeah.
I'm sorry, Suzanne. I apologize.
Suzanne is the winner of the $5. It's all
Yay,
$5.
Suzanne.
Congratulations. But I did want to circle back. I just want to thank you so much for really talking about mediation.
Sure.
And if you can maybe let us know where we can find it. Where can people find you if they're looking for a mediator?
NJAPM.org, and we have this lovely button on there, and it says "Find a Mediator," and you can put your code in. And but with the advent of Zoom, the nice thing about that is that a lot of mediators, you could be in like Cape May County and mediate a case that's in Bergen County. So that's the advantages of technology. We do meet in person as well, but Zoom works very well for mediation.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, actually, the court's even using have people appear via Zoom and things like that. So
well, that's
this is a big eye opener. Big eye opener for me for sure. Big eye opener.
Oh yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on. Until next time, again, we are sponsored by NJM, and me, Vinny, and Randy will see you next time on Planet New Jersey. Everybody, bye. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so much.
hosting. We appreciate it.